Okay, in this video we will be talking about the oculomotor nerve. The oculomotor nerve is one of the most important cranial nerves that we need to understand very well, because it helps to adjust and coordinate eye position during eye movements by supplying most of the extraocular and intraocular muscles. So it is very important to understand the anatomy of the oculomotor nerve, the origin, the course, and the most important clinical correlations of the oculomotor nerve with other structures, so we can understand the most common causes of oculomotor nerve dysfunction and the clinical presentation associated with it. So let's get started. This is a sagittal section of the brainstem, a longitudinal section of the brainstem showing the lateral view of the brainstem. This is the lateral view of the brainstem, this is the anterior view, and this is the posterior view. Here we can see the lateral aspect of the midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, and this is the continuation of medulla oblongata, which is the spinal cord. On the posterior side of the brainstem, we can see the cerebellum, which is attached to the brainstem through the cerebellar peduncles, upper, middle, and lower. On the posterior side of the midbrain, we can see the superior colliculus and inferior colliculus. Assume we come and we take a transverse section of the midbrain at this level. We come and we cut the midbrain. We take a horizontal section, a transverse section of the upper part of the midbrain at the level of superior colliculus, and we magnify this diagram so we can see the structures and the contents of the midbrain at this level. So this is a transverse section of the midbrain at the level of superior colliculus. First of all, let's agree that the midbrain is divided into three regions. This is the anterior view and this is the posterior view. The most anterior part of the midbrain is called the cross cerebri. This is the right cross cerebrus and this is the left cross cerebrus. Posterior to the cross cerebri here we can see the tegmentum area, and the most posterior part of the midbrain is called tectum. One half of the midbrain is called the cerebral peduncle. So we have the right cerebral peduncle and we have the left cerebral peduncle. Between the two cerebral peduncles here, there is a little space in the subarachnoid space which is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. You call this area the interpeduncular fossa because it's located between the two cerebral peduncles. The structures that we can see in the midbrain at the level of superior colliculus, in the cross cerebri we can see the substantia nigra bilaterally, and posterior to the substantia nigra we can see the red nucleus. We have the right red nucleus and we have the left red nucleus. In the tegmentum area here we can see the cerebral aqueduct, and actually the cerebral aqueduct is a CSF cavity which connects the third ventricle with the fourth ventricle, and the cerebral aqueduct is surrounded with a special type of gray matter known as periaqueductal gray matter, and it is very important to us. Why? Because our nerve, the oculomotor nerve, takes origin from this area, particularly in the intralateral area of the periaqueductal duct. Here we have periaqueductal gray matter. We have the main nucleus of the oculomotor nerve. This nucleus gives us fibers. These fibers, they will go all the way from the midbrain to the orbit to supply most of the extraocular muscles. And we know that the extraocular muscles are striated muscles under voluntary control. So these fibers have to be somatomotor fibers so they can innervate these voluntary muscles. So the fibers which take origin from the main nucleus of the oculomotor nerve are somatomotor fibers, and they innervate most of the extraocular muscles. Posterior to the main nucleus of the oculomotor nerve here in the periaqueductal gray matter, we have another oculomotor nerve nucleus. This nucleus is called the accessory parasympathetic nucleus, or we can call it the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. This nucleus gives us visceromotor parasympathetic fibers. These visceromotor parasympathetic fibers, they will go along the somatomotor fibers as a single one fiber to the orbit to supply the intraocular muscles inside the eyeball. So to summarize, the oculomotor nerve is a motor nerve which consists mainly of two types of fibers, somatomotor fibers and visceromotor parasympathetic fibers. These fibers, they take origin from the periaqueductal gray matter and the tegmentum part of the midbrain, and they move as a single one fiber from the midbrain to the orbit to supply most of the extraocular and intraocular ocular muscles. In the next video, we will be talking about the course of the oculomotor nerve in the midbrain, and in the upcoming videos we will be talking about the entire course of the oculomotor nerve from its origin in the midbrain until it reaches its last destination in the orbit, and the most important clinical correlations. What are structures that are in intimate relation with the oculomotor nerve through its entire course, so we can have an idea about the most common causes leading to oculomotor nerve dysfunction.